right, all, thank you for clicking on my video and welcome back to the channel. I'm Jimmy from JBO Studios, and today I just want to talk to you about the state of my collection as we wrap up 2022 and head into 2023. 2022 was a great year for the channel and a great year for my collection. I thought that I was going to wait and preserve this video until I hit 1,000 subscribers. I had readjusted my goal after getting off to a great start, but here we are. I am still very, very thankful for being over 500 subscribers now, and didn't think that me not hitting that extended goal should stop me from having an opportunity to talk about a few important pieces of my collection with you all. So this is totally unscripted. I am just going to freestyle, so I don't have all my spec sheets up. So I do apologize if I get anything wrong. This is not so much about detail, but just really want to share, maybe talk a minute or two about, the watches that's in my collection. So we will get started. Wrist check, and obviously a feature in my collection. I'm not going to go too deep, but this is my Apple Watch Ultra. Just recently upgraded my 6 to the Ultra. All right, so as we talked about, let's dive into the collection. And these are just, again, some of my collection. I won't go too into detail unless there's a specific story. There's quite a few watches to get through, and I would like to keep this video under an hour. And so first up, I want to talk about a watch that I think is very, very, very cool, and that is the SBGN003 by Grand Seiko. This is a high accuracy quartz GMT diver with a stainless steel fixed bezel orange GMT hand that is a really great competitor to the Rolex Explorer 2s, particularly the vintage models. If you want to save a few $1,000s, this is a really great watch to have in the collection, particularly a large collection that you can just grab and go. This is accurate within plus or minus 10 seconds a year, and I think is the best quartz watch on the market outside of maybe the Cartier Duomet, which would give it a really good run for its money. However, again, that's not a GMT watch like this one. I just really love that the way this one wears 39.5mm case, so it's right at 40 millimeters. And the size of the diameter, I think it wears a little bit bigger than the Christopher Ward, despite the Christopher Ward actually being 40 millimeters. Next up on the list is a very, very cool watch from a very great micro brand, and that is the Monta SkyQuest GMT with the gilt dial. This is a watch that I picked up earlier in the year, and a brand that I had in the collection before. I had the OG Ocean King, and some days I do regret letting that piece go. This is just a really great watch that you can track 3 time zones in, and one of the best oyster style bracelets that I think you're going to find on the market. I've actually entertained swapping or getting an extra Monta bracelet to put on my Rolex. That is just how comfortable this is, and on the updated SkyQuest now, they have a new micro adjustment, as I talked about in the video. But this is one of my favorites. This is the gilt dial with the ceramic, just black bezel. There's one with a gilt bezel, but I think with the number of numerals, having this in black and white, give the watch just a really different aesthetic. And I think I really like this on the wrist, coming in at 40.9 millimeters, so call it 41. Wears very similar to the Omega Seamaster 300 that is no longer in my collection, and I'm still a little sad about. Next up on the list is the Rolex Sub Mariner 16610 LV. This is the 50th anniversary edition, and this has now been in my collection almost 2 years. I did do a video on this just not that long ago. It's actually the last full video I dropped to commemorate me hitting 500 subscribers. Not one that you necessarily reviewed. The Kermit kind of stand on its own. Mine do not have the box and papers, unfortunately. However, I really do love this watch. And, you know, one thing that I just found out, this is from 2007. And that is my son's birth year. So, I was thinking about trading this at one point. However, I think with that significance and this truly being the Rolex that was thinking about adding to the collection, I didn't want to add another black bezel ceramic dive watch to the collection, and I am not a Rolex fanboy, so the Kermit really made sense, as I think it's unique, and I love this aluminum bezel. I am looking forward to this watch having a beautiful patina one day in the future. All right, next up on the list is a watch, and probably my favorite video that I've shot in today, and that is the Christopher Ward C65, I believe, GMT. I'm drawing a blank on the name. I've already been drinking wine. It is New Year's Day, New Year's morning, so the wine is already flowing, and hopefully it'll continue to flow this afternoon. Got a big game tonight. Those dogs are really serious, so hopefully my Bucks figure out a way to pull this one out, pull out the upset. But anyway, back to watches. This is the Christopher Ward Sealander GMT. This is an incredible watch. Another one with a stainless steel bezel, white dial with an orange GMT, designed to be or inspired by the Rolex Explorer 2 GMT, the more modern version, but it does have the proportions of the older Rolex Explorer 2. I think this is a really great watch, and in my opinion, the 2022 bargain watch of the year. You can find these typically used for around between $650 and $800. New on the website, they're $1,000. This is definitely a watch that I wouldn't think twice about spending $1,000 on new. The case, the dimensions, the wearability. I don't wear this a ton. I've probably worn it 20 times since I've had it in a collection, but it is just really a fun watch. If I want to throw it on the bracelet, if I need to change out the strap really quick, it does have a quick release pin buckles back there, so you can really change out the strap. And I think this watch just really looks great on NATOs, as I talked about in my video. So my most recent addition, and I am assuming this video is going to come out first. I'll probably drop the Cartier video sometime next week. That I actually just finished shooting that, so you'll notice my same hoodie on. But this is the Cartier Santos. I don't need to do a whole feature on this, as I'm going to do a video on it. But again, a recent pickup, one that I am super excited about. Fun fact about this, or I guess you could say a fun story, is I had ordered this. I had moved a couple pieces. You hear me talk about the 1968 Tribute earlier. I ended up selling my Tudor and my Omega Seamaster 300 to get that. Had a little bit of watch funds left over, and I had this in the budget, and I'm moving a couple other lower end pieces. So the Doxa is no longer in the collection. I moved the red Seiko, and a few other lower pieces. I have the JeanRichard is also up there to kind of help fund the remainder of this purchase, and the Girard Perregaux is also going to be up for sale more than likely. I really do like that watch. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but I have wanted a Santos for a really long time, and my wife was the reason why I did not add it in the beginning. When she first saw the pictures, she kind of said it looks like an old man watch, but after seeing it in the flesh, she is actually a really big fan of this. But I ordered it and was going to try to sneak this in before Christmas. I know that sounds awful. However, I took care of everybody for Christmas, I promise. But with that said, I was going to sneak this in, and she intercepted the package. And so I had to wait until Christmas to open it, which I guess wasn't that bad after all. So I've only had this a few days, and I've worn it practically every day. I definitely love the shape of this. I love this bezel. I love the dial. Those blue hands are just really incredible, and I think it looks really great in the collection. One of those iconic pieces that I do think have a home in just about every collection, even if you don't like square watches. I went with the large because it's a little bit more, I think this is a sports watch, a dressy sports watch, kind of on the same vein as the Patek Nautilus or something in that vein. And I think the larger style definitely gives it more of a sports watch aesthetic. I have a 7 1/4 inch wrist, so the medium did look great. But for the look that I wanted, I think this is just a really stellar piece. These are also going up in price, I heard, next year. So grabbing it while it was, still at the traditional retail was a steal. So this is one that I added last year, or towards the end of last year. I want to say November. So it's been in the collection. Actually it's probably closer to October, September when I added this one. But I immediately had to send it out for service, and I didn't get it back until April of this year, and I've worn it quite a bit. But this is the Girard Perregaux Laureto Olimpico 1996 Olimpico. And what a really, really incredible piece. As I said, I am selling it because it's on an integrated bracelet, and the Cartier is going to kind of fill that spot for me, and I need the watch funds. This is a really, really cool watch. I love the integrated bracelet. This bracelet is extremely comfortable. All the links just really sits and articulates on the wrist. For this to be a vintage watch, it has more modern day sizing. So it's the jumbo case, 40 millimeters. I actually like this better than the dimensions on the new Laureto. 11 millimeters thick. So this is, or I'm sorry, 10.5 millimeters thick. So, I mean, if you see this, this is a Genta Inspire, not designed by Genta style watch. It was obviously really popular in the 80s and the 90s, and AP brought that style back, and it now dominates most of the height watches. But this is a really great price. I think you can find these for around between $600 and $7,500. If you have the full box and papers, maybe a little bit more, but they don't come up often. This particular reference was done in 999 pieces, and they did 999 in white. Mine's had this beautiful, I don't know if it's going to pick up on the camera, but this really beautiful creamy patina on the lume. So, I mean, considering this watch is going to be 30 years old, looks really beautiful. I did get it serviced by Girard Perregaux, and I had them replace the sub registers, but everything else is all original. Next up, this is another watch that I am more than likely going to sell that I really do like. It is just a little too heavy for my small wrist, and I love this bracelet. I don't necessarily like the way this watch looks on leather, so I find myself not wearing it as much as it probably deserves. But this is the JeanRichard Terrascope GMT with the black dial. These are somewhat rare, and I have this up for sale right now. But this is a really great looking watch, a 44 millimeter cushion case, but it does have really short lug to lug given its size. So it's 49 millimeter lug to lug. So it does sit nice on the wrist, and it has great wrist presence, probably, just as much as my Apple Watch Ultra here. Really cool brushed stainless steel bezel that really doesn't pick up scratches, and I like that because they polished it on the side. So this is a really, really great looking GMT with a lot of heft. This is a subsidiary of Girard Perregaux, and the detailing of this bracelet, the case finishing, it's all just top notch. They use Solita base movements, and that's probably the gripe, but I mean, they do a really good job replacing the rotor. It's a really cool piece that I really wish didn't have as much heft to it. But this was kind of like my Nautilus placeholder, as it does have a little bit of some Nautilus vibes, at least to me. I'm a little disappointed about this. It's not anything that Frederic Constant did, but I actually was changing the straps, and the first time I think this has ever happened to me, I actually dropped this watch, and my 30-minute chronograph hand fell off. So I'm really disappointed because I'm assuming that's going to be pretty expensive to service. I hope not. I need to reach out to my watchmaker. But this is the Frederic Constant Flyback Chronograph Manufacturer Edition. So this is a modular in-house chronograph done by Frederic. Actually, my most viewed video to date. This was actually the video that started. This was the watch that started this channel. And a watch that my wife got me for my birthday. Oh, wow. So almost, I guess it'll be going on 5 years here really, really soon. That's actually blows my mind. But yeah, anyway, a very special piece, one that's going to stay in the collection. I have it on this beautiful lizard skin strap that I picked up from a watch or from a strap on Etsy. I still wear this even with the chronograph hand being broken because I don't use it. It does bother me that it's floating around in the case, so I will eventually get it serviced. But obviously a special piece that will stay in the collection. My wife, is not necessarily a watch collector, but she's learned, and I think she is starting to love watches through osmosis and me talking about them 24/7. And so the fact that she, took the time to hear me talk about this and find this watch for a great value really means a lot, and it'll stay in the collection. This definitely gives off some Patek vibes, and I think that's what I really like about this. Frederic Constant has some really cool, the hand is bothering me much, but Frederic Constant has some really cool watches in a lineup. I really like that highlight that they put out. But they do make some really great quality watches. Again, this broke no fault of theirs, really through my clumsiness. But yeah, the Fredirique Constant Flyback Chronograph is an amazing value proposition in the chronograph world. To get a chronograph, for under $4,300 is what these retail for, and I think you can find them used anywhere between now they're about $1,700 to $2,500. All right, next up, that's obviously a staple in my collection. So I had the Seamaster 300 in blue non-wave dial a long time ago, and I've had several different Omegas. I've had 2 different Planet Oceans. Really love those watches. They're always a little thick, and I end up getting rid of them at one point for one reason or the other. And so I've always wanted a Speedmaster in my collection, and so I finally did that 3 years ago, and I added a Speedmaster to the collection. And mine's Hesalite crystal, I think, is the best way to go in my personal opinion. I would have loved to see the see-through case back and take a look at this beautiful movement, but at the same time, I have some other watches that I get to check out the movement on, and something about getting one that's with all the modern bracelet and the box presentation and still having the Hesalite crystal to be as close as it could to the original. As somewhat of a purist, I can really, really appreciate this particular reference. I don't have it on the bracelet. I actually don't wear this on NATO straps as much as I thought. I actually found this particular strap on, this is one of the higher end leather strap makers on Etsy, a company out of Ukraine, and I'll try to remember to drop that in a video. But this strap is really, really cool, and I love a Speedmaster on a really, really sexy rally style strap like this. I just think that's an amazing and incredible look. Another video of another watch that I am going to be doing shortly, and I cannot tell you just how excited I was about this. I feel like I gave up a lot to acquire the funds for this, but I definitely think it was worth it. It was my Tudor 79260, and so my Tiger Prince chronograph and my Omega Seamaster 300 Heritage in blue. I'm going to add that watch back in black in the future, like I said earlier, because I really do love that watch. I think Omega nailed it. But anyway, this is the JOC Memovox Tribute to Polaris 1968, and just a watch that I really love. I'm going to spare the details, so I'm going to go pretty deep into the history on why this watch was important and why I've always wanted the Memovox Polaris in my collection. I actually would still add the newer version. The black dial is obviously way more affordable than the new Mariner, as the Mariner is, I think, in the $30,000 range. But you can find the 2018 variant of this watch with the more modern dial. So it's the new feature of the Polaris line. And I've seen those used for around 12 or 13, but this one was only made in 762 pieces or 768 pieces, and is the direct replica of the original outside of the dial difference. There's a European dial and a US dial. This mimics more of the US dial, and there's a few different variations, but outside of that, the case dimensions, the thickness, the unsigned logos, but instead having a hash mark, the motif with the actual 3 holes to really amplify the alarm on the wrist. This is really just a cool watch. I love the idea of a 3-hander with a date that have these 3 crowns that give it like a chronograph presence, because one operates the alarm function, one operates the inner rotating bezel, and then the other one is obviously for your time. So great watch, one I was super excited about adding to the collection. It's a little bit on the thick side, but because of the design of the lugs and them starting so high, it actually doesn't appear as thick on the wrist as the dimensions give off, because this is a 17 millimeter thick watch, and as you can see, a lot of that is just from that beautiful domed plexiglass crystal. JLC knocked this one out the park. All right, next up, one of my other favorites. So we're going to get into the JLC portion of my collection. If you watch this channel, you know that I'm a pretty big fan of JaegerLeCoultre. I'm going to try to say the name right. I watched Catherine Reiner say it, and she says it so eloquently and beautifully, JaegerLeCoultre. But this is my JaegerLeCoultre Navy SEALs diver on the black, just this incredible black rubber bracelet. I actually find myself wearing this a lot. If I said I had a daily diver, this is actually it. It is so easy to wear. I throw it on NATOs. I actually have the leather strap, because the one that I have is the short one. So I have the longer, that canvas badass looking leather strap that came with it, arriving hopefully sometime next week. And I think, again, this is a watch that I just really love the design language. I would love if JLC came out with these in a reissue and did them in a different color. Even if you didn't have the Navy SEAL branding, I would love to see JLC bring back a traditional diver. I actually have this cheap watch I picked up on eBay for $249 that I'll try to remember to picture here, that's on the way from JLC, but it's a 1968 JLC Club. I picked it up for $300 on eBay, and they don't have JLC movements. They use this AS 1916 movement, but this is a great watch. I would love to see JLC bring this particular design back in a different colorway, maybe just change the bezel. I think it'd be really, really great, and definitely it's just one of my favorite divers ever made. I believe this was 2012. Somebody can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong when these got released, but I picked it up in 2019. Gave up my Grand Seiko, I'm going to butcher the name, SBGA 211, my cream dial GMT for this and a little bit of cash, and I definitely think it was worth that in the trade. Next up, which was my grill for the longest time and the crown jewel in my collection, definitely the staple of my JLC collection, and that is my Duomet in yellow gold. So these are really rare. They only did 300 in these, and this is the first Duomet that they made before they started upgrading and doing different dial variants and made it a staple part of their collection. And mine is number 124, and I just think, again, this is one of the coolest watches. At the time I made this purchase, I was mulling over a Daytona or potentially a Royal Oak. And, I'm a watch collector first, and while those watches are definitely more popular and, maybe definitely better investments, at the time they were still overpriced. I think a Rolex Daytona retail was like $12,500, and, I would have been spending $25,000 to $30,000 on a watch that, again, was retailing at $12,500, and I feel the same way about the Royal Oak. So this had been a grill watch of mine for the longest time, and when I had the opportunity to pick it up, I was able to sell a couple pieces, trade in a couple pieces to help with the rest of the purchase. And I got it when this was at the low point of the market. I'm not going to necessarily share that here in the video, but these are just really incredible. Mine has been recently serviced, so I have the 2-year warranty on it. But this has now been in my collection since the end of 2019 as well. And will probably, I'm going to say probably, this will stay in my collection unless things really, really change and put a situation to where I would have to get rid of it. You can't shoot a Duomet or show a Duomet on camera as a rule without having a movement, a shot of the movement. And so I won't disappoint there. But that's what it's all about. These watches, I think currently on JLC website, are retailing for just a little bit over $50,000, which is a little bit more than what they retailed back when they came out in 2010. I believe the retail on the Duomets was $46,500 at retail, and you can typically find those now somewhere in the mid-20s to high 30s. I think this movement is at the top of the watch game outside anything. Maybe Lange, I would say Lange definitely do some really great movement, things from Vacheron, but this is one of my favorite movements in a watch that's not a prototype or one of JLC's concept watches. Like, this is just a everyday wearable piece of horology, and I know a lot of Duomet owners really do enjoy wearing their Duomets out. If you don't follow Fremstar on Instagram, you should definitely check him out. He has 2 Duomets that I just really, really adore. I'm not probably going to ever have 2 Duomets in the collection unless things drastically change. But I definitely enjoy this. This is definitely the staple and feature of my collection. Next up on the list is a watch that I also think is relatively unappreciated. And just for time, I won't take it off the cushions. I'm going to start to speed that up a little bit. And this is the JLC Geophysic 1958. I think this is just a beautiful watch. One that I find myself wearing even more than I thought. I bought this to kind of be a dress down, casual dressy piece, and I actually find that this watch dressed down really nice. I throw it on NATOs if I just want something simple and really quick. I love this design, this white dial with just that texture look really great, and that signature JLC font, the 9, 6, 12, and 3, just really looks incredible on this dial. 38 and a half, which are just perfect dimensions. It's kind of a dress field watch, go anywhere watch. These were made to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the first Geophysic year, and then JLC re-released these. And again, I just think a watch that I did a video on already, one of my favorites. Next up on the list, this is the watch that started it all for me in the JLC world. And I believe this is now, I think I picked this up in 2018. So almost going to be 5 years in May. No, 4 years in May. So this would have been 2019. It will be 4 years since I added this to the collection. My warranty is actually up in 2026. This is the JLC Chronograph Polaris in blue, which I just think is the best dial variant of the Polaris line, especially the Polaris Chronograph. You can make an argument that the black slate dial rose gold world timer is also an amazing dial, but this is to me still my favorite Blue Watch Monday watch on the market. The only complaint that some people had was the size of the movement. I don't have any issues. I think JLC rectified that now. The new ones have a 70-hour power reserve. Mine was a 42 or 48. These have definitely risen in a couple years. I think now they're retailing on the bracelet for $11,500. And as I was saying earlier, I actually finally bit the bullet and got the JLC bracelet for this. I should have picked it up on the bracelet initially. I got it on the brown leather strap because I thought this buckle was definitely more valuable. And I do love the buckle. However, the JLC strap or the JLC Polaris bracelet never comes up available use. I have not seen them just at retailers, so I finally bit the bullet and ordered it through an AD for the full retail, which is like $1,800. So I am hoping the bracelet is every bit as amazing as I remember it to be, but I think it is definitely going to look great on the watch. So at least I'll have the brown leather strap, the black rubber strap that comes with it, which is the best rubber strap I've owned. I'm not a big rubber fan, but I find myself wearing this on the black rubber strap actually quite often because it looks so good. Oof, we're making 27 minutes. That's not too shabby. Next up on the list, two watches that are probably from my favorite brand, and we're going to get to the more micro brands part of my collection. I think the fun part of my collection that adds color. Again, I don't necessarily buy watches because of the name. I just really love the JLC brand. I think the design language and what they represent speaks to me. But I actually enjoy being able to add and experiment with some micro brands. And Fairer, I will tell you, lately it's between them and Oak and Oscar going back and forth on my two favorite. I do need to add another Oak and Oscar, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is the Fairacra mono pusher. This uses a Sellita-based mono pusher movement that allows you to get a mono pusher for just under, I want to say these retail for $2,200. You can find them used anywhere between 16 and 18. Fairer actually holds their value really well. This is really just a very great looking chronograph. I changed it and put it on a Watch Gecko or Watch Gecko rally strap, quick release rally strap that looks incredible. I actually love the strap that it came on. You can custom order different straps with Fairer models. This is one of the coolest dials. It's not better than I don't think the blue dial is as good as my Polaris, but I would say in the micro brand segment, this color blue is really hard to nail down, and that starburst with the yellow pop and the orange hand really looks great. And the fact that it's a different chronograph, my second mono pusher in the collection, was definitely a plus. Again, Sellita-based movement. This is the Labrador grade though, and I don't know if you've noticed, but Fairer has recently switched manufacturers and is using an even more higher end movement caliber now. So they are a legit watch brand with some great designs. I love this kind of, I guess you would call it a cushion case. Man, it's a really incredible watch, really incredible dial. Dark blue applied numerals was just a really great touch for this model. And yeah, Fairer hit it out the park. This watch coming up is, I would say, the JLC and the Frederic Constant are the two watches that I wear the most. It's been in my collection the longest, coming up on 4 and 5 years. This Fairer Endurance is technically the longest watch out of any watch I have in my current rotation, outside of two watches that I'll talk about a little bit later. As my collection was always rotating and changing. This has probably been the most consistent my collection has been in my years of collecting. But this Fairer now is going to be almost 5.5 years, I think. But this is the OG Fair Endurance. These retailing these back in the day. I think they came out in 2014. Would have been about $1,400. I picked mine up for $700 about 5-6 years ago, just off the forum, and it came with the box, watch, and papers. And at the time, I didn't really know what to expect from the brand. I don't wear this. I haven't worn it a ton, but I definitely still wear it a lot. This is just such a fun watch. I love it on this yellow strap. I often throw it on the green lizard skin strap that I have. And, this is kind of a fun colored field watch. I love the fact that it has like all the numerals that my JLC 1958 doesn't have. So it's a white dial watch, but with a little bit different variant. And it's kind of, I guess it's white, it's silvery white, and then there's a darker silver in the center. I love the syringe hands on this, that dark blue with the light blue pop, and then that little bit of hint of orange throughout the dial. I think Fair's dial play, as far as a micro brand, is the best in the industry. I actually wish more main brands did more experimenting with colors and different color combinations, but I guess this is where the micro brand space has an area to be competitive. But the Fair Endurance, the OG model, I have definitely looked at a couple of their other three-handers. I just think they're super, super fun. But if you try to collect Fairs, you won't have any money for any other watches. I could easily add 6 of these to my collection and be extremely happy. But then you do the math, and yeah, like there's some other pieces that I'm chasing. But they are fun. Like I am looking at possibly adding there's one, I can't remember the name. I think it's the previous. That's this really cool, just milky black dial with just the number 12 and 6 in gold that looks really, really incredible. All right, next up is another fun watch in my collection. These were really hard to get for a while, and now you can find them again back on the website. I think they sold out again, but this is the Studio Underdog, and this is the mint choco chip dial variant. There's the watermelon, which is probably the most popular. There's I think it's the desert sand, which is inspired by some Nikes, and there's an eggplant version that he came out with. There's a strawberry cheesecake, so some really, really fun colors. I actually like this. This is probably about as bold as I could go. This is a combination of like minty blue and green that looks really great. The dial is really cool. You can see these as the indices, as these little chocolate chips that he uses the indices. I just really love this design. It's only 13, actually, I want to say, if I remember correctly, I think this is only right at 13 or 12.5 millimeters thick. It actually looks thicker because of the case design, but that gives it this vintage inspired look. But I actually get quite a few compliments when I wear this. This is just a really fun, colorful watch to have in the collection. Next up is a watch from a brand that I will own, one of his more exclusive pieces, and that's Stefan Sarpanivi. I'm always butchering that name, so I apologize. But this is the SUF Helsinki 180. This is their field watch, and again, very similar to my Fair Endurance. It has all the numbers that my JLC field watch don't have, so there's a little bit of variety in my field watches. I love this dial. This is a 38.5 millimeter case as well, 10.5 millimeters thick. As you can see, I don't know if that's on a photo. There we go. 10.5 millimeter case thickness. So this is actually really, really thin. It actually looks thinner than that. But I love the salmon dial. I love the black font. I love the font that they use. This is something that's exclusive to Helsinki or to SUF. The railroad minute track going around with the loom pips, and that singular triangular is a really great look. And then that blue second hand with the lollipop just give this watch such a unique look. I love it on this lime green strap, this lizard strap. And I think that salmon and green really looks great. It actually plays down to black a little bit. It uses a special steel out of Finland. I'm not 100% sure on what's the difference between that and normal steel properties, but the case finishing on this is really, really special, and this is a brand that a lot of people probably don't know about. This is 1 of 51, so I don't know what number it is. They are all numbered. Oh, actually, it does tell you the number in the back. So mine's is 5 of 51, but they only made 51 of these, which I think is really cool. And they made 50 or 51 in each of the dial variants. I think they now have a 180 that's not a limited edition. All right, next up is a watch that is probably my favorite watch story to tell. This is a Tag Heuer Quartz Professional 1000 Diver. I do not wear this a ton. This is in my collection for sentimental values. I pull it out a few times a year, and I still really adore this watch. So this is a watch that's been in my collection now, I think almost 7 or 8 years. Uh, this was gifted to me by a coworker that I work with, a gentleman that when I worked at Cabela's, I remember walking into my interview room and, was in his probably late 70s, 80s at the time. And I had never met anybody so passionate about what they do. He was a really, really passionate fisherman, drove tankers, taught math, but he was a math teacher for 20 years. Also drove tankers, did it for the Navy, then did it privately for a long time. So knew more about marine electronics than anybody I knew. But anyway, long story short, when he passed away, he gifted me this watch. He had his sister reach out to me. I initially declined it to see if he, wanted to give it to one of his kids, and they were not interested. He had specifically said he wanted to give this particular watch to me, which I thought was really special. He wore this one every day. He actually wore it on the stainless steel Jubilee bracelet, which I still have. I usually wear it on his blue and yellow NATO strap. But we talked about watches all the time. He would always talk about his tag. I would compliment this tag, and he would always be interested to see what I was wearing. This was 8, 9, like I said, about 8 years ago, so my collection was in a different place. But I had a Tag Carrera CV 2010, and I wish I still had some of the photograph, but, we would photograph our watches alongside this other older gentleman that was a huge collector that had some pretty sweet pieces in his collection, a vintage Breitling Navitimer, an original Omega Seamaster 300 that was just in great condition. But yeah, like definitely missed the guy. I wear this. We actually do a little anniversary thing where we go fishing on his, on his anniversary, and this is definitely a timepiece that I wear out when I'm doing it. And this is a pretty badass watch. This watch has seen a ton, and I just think about all the imperfections. It's missing the loom pip at the crystal. Just thinking about what that gentleman was doing as he was wearing and doing some really cool adventures, what he was hauling across the different parts of the Atlantic and the Pacific that he got to sell and explore while wearing this watch. So one that I'm sure that has been well loved. I'm gonna keep original. As best I can. I'm not sure if the bezel was ever supposed to rotate on these, but this one is kind of stuck in place. But this is a really cool diver, 36 millimeters, so definitely small by today's standards. But when I wear it, people still stop and say, "Oh wow, that's a pretty cool watch." And whenever I post it on the forums, it always gets a pretty cool reaction as well. Next up is another sentimental piece, and technically the oldest watch in my collection that we are going to talk about. And this is the watch that, my wife got me, when we got married. So I just celebrated our 12-year anniversary. We'll be celebrating our 13-year anniversary this coming April. We have been together for 21 years. But this is my beloved, I'm not even sure of the reference, but this is just a beloved dress watch. 12 years ago, early 20s, I was into watches. I think I had a handful of Invictas at a time, and some really inexpensive unnamed brand watches. Like I literally just bought any watch. I had like 50 watches, probably 5 or 6 that were broken in a drawer waiting on parts. But this one was particularly special because this was like the first name brand watch that I actually went to a store and bought. And we were in Macy's. I had just got her ring maybe like 2 months ago, so I definitely didn't have any money. Used the pretty much all of the bonus that I got at the time to make sure that I had a respectable wedding ring and engagement ring. But this at the time, I want to say, was on sale at Macy's for $137. And I actually at the time, that was probably the most I had spent on a watch. I think up until that point, everything I was buying was off the bay. Some cheaper Invictas. I had an Invicta Lupa at the time, the Dragon Lupa that I picked up for $80, which is still a pretty insane watch for $80. But this was crossing $100 for a watch was a significant deal for me. And so yeah, this one has definitely stayed in the collection. I wore this every day at work. For the most part, for like I think the first couple years that I owned it, and then I finally bought a Citizen watch, and from there it was really downhill. I started to see what other brands existed out there and learned about different quality. But that watch is technically the watch that kicked it off all that made me get into name brand watches. So this is probably the first micro brand that I really got obsessed with. Reading it in a magazine. I can't remember what online watch magazine I was looking at, but this is the Oak and Oscar. This is the Burnham, the original OG. I definitely want a Humboldt. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that, and I would love to add a Sanford and a Jackson. If I was to collect all the editions of a micro brand, it would probably be Oak and Oscar which probably is why this is my favorite brand. It's an American-based brand, just like Monta, but there's something about the design language of Oak and Oscar that just feels really American in all their watches. I love the type, form, and the font that they use on their watches. I love these orange second hands. I love the way the second hand and the barrel on the counterweight eclipses over the logo. That's a fun treat every time. There's so many little attentions to detail, to the special cutout on the 7, to all the 7s on the date wheel being orange. I love this like center railroad track. It is just a very cool watch. And when I think about what micro brands have become, it's very hard not to credit Chase and the team at Oak and Oscar for really laying out the blueprint. I would say them and Monta. Monta did it for the extreme kind of high-end, really expensive, coming out with a watch that was, $3,800. And, this one coming out at $1,600, definitely cornered the micro brand market and now give us some really great independents or really just great micro brand watches that, have a really great blueprint to make some really cool things. This is a big watch, 42 millimeters, 51 millimeters lug to lug. But I have the wrist size, in my opinion, to wear. This is definitely a really cool, big field watch. And it has all the numerals on the dial but 6. So another field watch just with a little bit of variety of the dial. This gray dial with these gunmetal hands is also just a really nice aesthetic. And the best part of this is that this is a sandwich dial. So this lume just really looks great. And just really have a great glow. There's so many fine details on this watch. And again, one day I'm going to have all the Oak and Oscars in my collection, maybe after the kids are gone. Next up, another special piece in my collection. One, again, that'll never leave. This was a gift from my team in South Carolina before I moved up to the DC area. And this is the Seiko Presage in green. And I just thought it was a really, really great gift. Not necessarily a watch that I had on my radar, but I had been talking about adding a green watch in my collection for a while. So, I think I got this in 2021. So the beginning of last year is when I moved up to the DC area. And, the fact that my team heard me talking about a green watch, the fact that I talk about watches that much, they knew that a green watch would be one add to the aesthetic. And, they pulled together to get me a really nice and thoughtful gift. Will always have a special place in my heart. I really like this green Matcha T dial. And along with my Oak and Oscar, just like a watch that I don't mind throwing on with a cool pair of flannel and jeans and just running out the house. Love this heart Lex crystal. I actually thought that was some type of marketing ploy from Seiko, that it was not really different from plexiglass. What I will say is that it definitely holds up better than plexiglass, because I actually wear this one quite a lot. It's another field watch with just a different variety of numerals. And, unlike my Fair Endurance, there's no numerals cut off on the dial, so I get the full 6. So I don't really know how to classify this. It's definitely has that dressier, vintage-inspired case with some dome thickness, but it's thin enough to double as like a fun dress watch. I primarily wear it on this strap. This strap is actually really nice, considering, which is, not to be surprised when you're dealing with Seiko. And last but not least, so I think we're going to be able to edit this down and get this video down to under an hour or under 50 minutes. But this is the Christopher Ward Typhoon 1000. I believe it's the FGR 14, if I'm not mistaken. But this is really a badass watch. I'm just not gonna lie. Outside of the name of IWC, everything about this watch is so much better than the Top Gun. You have a 42 millimeter case, 13.5 millimeters thick. I think that the IWC is well north of 15. They both use a ETA-based movement. So this is back when you were able to get ETA-based movements in watches outside the Swatch group. But the dimensions are great. The only thing that they did a couple of different dial variants. If you don't like the count up dial, I believe there's one with just regular indices. I'm not sure if there's one with just regular numerals, but there are a couple of different dial variants. There's one where this registers blue. There's one where it has blue and pink in it. But each of them was a limited edition. I think they were limited to just 1,000 pieces. Somebody, if you know for sure, drop a comment. But all ceramic, black ceramic case with titanium subframe, so it's really, really lightweight. It's definitely lighter and wears a lot better. The lug to lug width is 48.5 millimeters, so this will accommodate a wrist as small as, I would say, 6.25 inches. Looks great on this olive green strap. I think I've only worn it on the original strap once. It comes on a really heavy duty, very cool olive green canvas, two-piece strap with a PVD pin buckle. But I love this. I have this on this Barkin Jack NATO strap, who also makes some really good strap. This is a really cool rib strap, and I just think this watch is killer. This is probably my go-to for Pilot Watch Fridays. I think the Santos will now give it a little bit of run for its money, but again, it's just a badass watch. I think compared to, I think these two go really, really nice in the collection. I have a diver and a chronograph that are these two kind of black, tough, ceramic style watch. I would love to add a ceramic JOC deep sea chronograph to the collection. Just not really been in the cards. It will probably be one day in the future. But that's it. That is the state of my collection. Unscripted, me just rambling. But that is the state of my collection. Once again, thank you for just sitting here for, I don't know how long the video is going to turn out, but I'm guessing close to 45 minutes and just talking about my watch collection. I tried to keep some of the stories brief, but sometimes I get on the roll when I get passionate about talking about my hobby. This is my favorite hobby. I have a couple others. Video editing is now one, and I find this process quite therapeutic. Thank you again for watching. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, and I'm always looking for different gift ideas. You can follow me on JWO Studios as well on Instagram. I'll try to remember to drop that here. So this is Jimmy from JWO Studios signing off, and I am wishing everyone an amazing and prosperous 2023. I will see you all soon. Bam.